Take the screen down, James, please. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another Three Nations Dementia Working Group webinar. We're happy to be with you this morning, and we hope you're all fit and well at home, even though the rain is falling in some places. Today's theme is bereavement and dementia, which is a difficult and challenging thing for people, both in a caring capacity and people living with the diagnosis themselves. Like anyone, a person with dementia may respond to bereavement in a range of ways. However, the difficulties with thinking and reasoning may affect how they understand and adapt to the bereavement and change. This doesn't mean they're unable to experience loss and grief, however. What it means, if a person who has died was the main carer of the person with dementia, it can also lead to a lot of change in the person's life. This may need professional carers for the first time, or having new people around them providing care. In some cases, the person may need to move to into residential care, and they are likely to need lots of support, guidance, and assistance to adjust to these new changes and new lifestyles. There are many things to think about when a person close to someone with dementia dies. This includes whether to tell the person or not, or whether they attend a funeral, as been an example of this. We've got, as always, we've got a panel to help us work through some of these issues today. My name is Nigel. I'm chair of the Three Nations Dementia Working Group. We have Joy, Tommy, Sheila and Julie on the panel, and they'll introduce themselves as we go along. These webinars, just to remind you, these webinars rely on you. We need your comments, responses and questions via the text boxes, which you'll find at the bottom of the screen. If you hold your hand up, you can't see it, so if you have questions, please use the text boxes to ask, and we'll respond as we can. We can't deal with individual cases, but we can help with signposting and the like. So that's all from me. Let me hand over to the panel who are far more interested than what I am. And I'm going to start off with Tommy. Good morning, Tommy.
Good morning, Nigel. Good morning, everybody.
Tommy's well known to most people.
Especially the police.
Especially the police, yeah.
Okay. Now, dying is an individual and a unique experience, and everyone will experience it in their way and have their own needs. However, when someone is approaching the end of life, there are common characteristics and changes that help us to know when a person is dying. We all know about advanced planning for end-of-life care, and it's vital. We know about the taboos about discussing death and poor understanding of dementia, mean that these conversations do not take place between people living with dementia, families, friends, health and social care professionals. That's why the likes of these webinars are vital, to show that death is a natural part of living, so we need to be discussing them. We know it can be difficult and distressing to think about end of life when at the moment you are currently living well with dementia. But planning ahead, that's advanced care planning, is important. It can save a lot of heartache for you and your loved ones. Planning can help you decide how you'd like to be cared for in the final months of your life. Planning helps with where you'd like to be cared for and who you'd like to be with. An advanced statement can include how you want any religious or spiritual beliefs to be reflected in your care. Making plans while you're still able to make decisions can help you let people know your wishes and feelings while you're still able to. I have Alzheimer's disease, which is a life-limiting illness, although many people diagnosed with this condition will die from another cause. End-of-life care should support someone in the later stages of life-limiting condition to live as well as possible until they die. A good death to me would involve being treated as an individual with dignity, with respect, without pain and other symptoms in familiar surroundings. Too often, however, people living with dementia receive undignified treatment and are ending their lives in pain. The partnership between dementia care and palliative care are undeveloped. People living with dementia may not be referred for specialist end-of-life care. People living with dementia have the same right to a good death as people with other health conditions and should be involved in decisions about their end-of-life care wherever possible. Specialist palliative care and comfort care should be available to the person at all times, and the appropriate emotional support should be available for families. People with dementia rights should be supported to use their rights under the Mental Capacity Act and human rights. Well, my good friend Nigel knows a lot about that. However, as dementia advances, in many cases, capacity is lost and decisions need to be made on behalf of the person with dementia. Health and social care professionals should be trained to provide high quality, person-centered care to provide dignity and quality of life. People working with someone at the end of their life should also be able to communicate sensitively to themselves, both to the families and the person living with dementia. Withholding or withdrawing treatment is especially ethnically complex and emotionally challenged for a person with dementia. When someone with dementia is close to dying, the main issue of concern should be the quality of life and quality of death, not length of life. There has to be an honest and open discussion between medical professions, family, and carers about any decisions to withhold or withdraw the treatment. In any decision, the quality of life and the comfort of the person with dementia is paramount. Unfortunately, the emotional and spiritual needs of people with dementia are disproportionately neglected as well. People living with dementia might receive holistic care that recognises and responds to individual wishes and needs. In the final weeks and days of life, the dying person should be the focus of care. As impossible as it may seem, taking care of yourself during your loved one's final stages is vital. It's important to learn how to adjust and gain acceptance. Even if the patient's cognitive and memory functions are depleted, their capacity to feel frightened or at peace, loved or lonely, sad or secure remains. The end-of-life journey is eased considerably when conversations regarding placement, treatment and end-of-life wishes are held as early as possible. Once your loved one can participate, legal documents such as a living will, power of attorney or advance directive needs to be done. Choose a primary decision maker who will make arrangements, who will manage information and coordinate their family involvement and support. Over the last couple of weeks, I've lost a lot of my peers, including some during lockdown. One of my friends, Bobby, ended up in a care home. My friend Paul, who's got Alzheimer's as well, and myself used to visit him in the home. He was like a caged tiger. He was a big 6 foot strong muscular man who used to play rugby. He was reduced to playing past the parcel, and within a couple of months his frame had shrunk to skin and bone, and it did not surprise me when he passed away. While I miss him very much, I would not wish him back to lead a life like that. And sadly, a couple of weeks ago we've lost our friend Gina. Gina used to be co-chair of one of our groups, and again lockdown has taken years off her life. Gina was a very sociable person who again suffered the isolation that lockdown brought. People think that lockdown is finished, but it's not so for us people living with dementia. Social isolation was there long before lockdown for us, and it's still here now. Social isolation is a killer, loneliness is a killer, and both are preventable. We'll always remember there's a lot of living to be done before Judgment Day, so let's enjoy it. Thank you. You're still on mute, you're on mute, Nigel. You're on mute.
I'm okay now. Tom, you mentioned a couple of things there. I want to may help our audience if you explain what a living will is. Tom, you're on mute.
Yeah, the living will is it's made that a living will is a document that will be created. It's made that a living will is a document that will be created. It's made that a living will is a document that will be created. It's made that a living will is a document that will be created. It's made that a living will is a document that will be created. It's made that a living will is a document that will be created. It's made that a living will is a document that will be created. It's made that a living will is a document that will be created. It's made that a living will is a document that will be created. It's made that a living will is a document that will be created. It's made that a living will is a document that will be created. It's made that a living will is a document that will be created. It's made that a living will is a document that will be created. It's made that a living will is a document that will be created. It's made that a living will is a document that will be created. It's made that a living will is a document that will be created. It's made that a living will is a document that will be created. It's made that a living will is a document that will the way I look at living well, it's made in something that I can change at any time, and it's something that my wishes are expressed while I'm still alive here and now. And my wife's got my living well, so she knows what my wishes is, where I want to be put. We've got like a health care will, so she knows if I want to be resuscitated as well. Because on the part of me thing, it's got DNR, do not resuscitate. So that's on me medical things. So that's like making part of that. I'm sure Nigel explains it a little well more than I do, but it's having what I want now, what my wishes expressed. It's not what someone else wants, it's what I want, and it's everything that I want to happen, and it's coming from myself rather than coming from what someone thinks I need.
Yeah, I mean, it's so important to get these things done when you're in a position to actually do them, isn't it? And this is where you mentioned capacity, which is really important, that we do these things once we have capacity. This is a standard question I'm going to ask everybody, and I'm sorry if I put you on the spot a little bit, Tommy, but how do you help a person with dementia grieve?
By being there for them, by listening to them, by knowing the person. If you know the person, you can help them grieve, because I mean, we're going to be discussing whether you tell later on, whether you tell person that person's dead or not, and we might have different views on that as well, but I think first of all, you've got to let the person grieve. It's all right to cry. Don't be saying, oh no, pull yourself together. Let the person grieve. If a person wants to cry, let them cry. If a person wants to laugh about, some people laugh in that, when you tell someone someone's died. I bet people laugh, but that's nerves, and but that's grieving. So you don't stop a person if they laugh, because that's their way of grieving. So every person, every one of us is unique, so we'll grieve in different ways. And what we've got to do is if you know the person with dementia, that's why people actually need to talk to us now. People think you can't talk to a person with dementia about death. If you talk to a person about dementia, about death now, well, you've still got capacity in that. It'll help you further on the line when the grieving police thing comes, when they lose loved ones, because all of us with living with dementia now, we're going to lose a lot of friends that we know, before our time comes, or we might go before them, But it's one thing we can guarantee with dementia, we're going to lose a lot of friends.
Yeah. Thank you, Tommy. And there's some comments in the chat box here. People being very, very complimentary what you're saying. Thank you, Tommy. Well said, Tommy. That was really powerful. Thank you for sharing, Tommy. So thank you again. If you can hang about for a bit, we probably circle back. But when you need to go, because I understand you've got a golfing bug this morning. So I understand this. That's more worth than life itself. Sheila, good morning to you.
Good morning. When I heard of what this morning's topic was, I immediately thought about a wife I used to know. Who visited her husband on a dementia ward, and I used to go every day, and so did she. And whereas the person I went to see was always very glad to see me, and confused but very responsive. Her husband didn't respond in any way whatsoever, and she'd been going apparently for about 4 years without having any response from him. She fed him, she would sit with him holding his hand, but there was just no response at all. And then I heard that he died, and I telephoned her. She couldn't drive, and I could. So I telephoned her to offer my condolences and also to ask, was there anything I could do? And she was quite angry, and she said, the one thing you can do is not tell me that it's a blessed relief. I haven't just lost a husband with dementia. I've lost the man I walked down the aisle to meet. I've lost the man I used to bop with at the local club. I've lost the father of my children. And it made me realize that, and I've never forgotten, that dementia is only a little part of us. We're who we always were to the people in our lives. And that's what we need to remember. Those are the things that make us are the things that our loved ones remember, not the dementia. I reached the stage myself with increasing confusion where I'm looking for Paul quite often. I live in an extra care complex, so there are carers coming in twice a day. They come in the morning and in the evening to make sure I've had my medication and make sure I'm all right. And I will occasionally ask them where Paul is. And the response goes from he's dead, duck, to a big hug, to offers of a cup of tea, a piece of toast, some sort of distraction. But whatever they do, it comes with a degree of love, with a degree of wanting to help me. And after the confusion's gone, I'm really grateful for that. I'm really, really very grateful for that. And I guess that as time goes on, I'll look for him more and more and more, because that's just how it is. Bereavement for people with dementia is the hardest thing. Because of that, not being able to accept it. None of us find it easy to accept bereavement, but when you have dementia, it's hard to separate the not accepting from the dementia. And certainly I find myself in that situation lots of times. I'm lucky that I have a very loving family, as well as a lot of very caring carers around me. And I ache for the people who don't have that, who have to live alone with the confusion, and somehow get themselves out of it. It makes me realize how lucky I am to have the degree of support that I do have.
I don't expect you to answer this, Sheila, but it's a question I want to ask you. How do we know that people with maybe who are on their journeys with dementia or grieving, how do we know?
I suppose we know because we know them. If you talk about people that we already know, my family, my daughter knows when I'm grieving, you know, and she responds with that big hug and oh mum, that means the world. You know, she doesn't have to say much more than oh mum. Sometimes it's in the most obvious way. We just sit and howl, and I know that I do that sometimes.
Yeah, because there's no sort of sell-by date for grieving, is there?
No, absolutely not.
Nobody can say when it starts, and nobody can say when it stopped. I mean, I lost my mother when I was 8, and I've grieved for 52 and a bit years, but in a positive way. You know, I mean, it's made me sad, but it's also because my belief system is that I will see her again. Then, you know, only I'll know that. So, but the way it goes, but I think grief is an internalized thing. And Tommy, you made a quite an interesting comment about when you're diagnosed with Alzheimer's, it's considered or dementia, I guess. It's considered that maybe you don't have the capacity to grieve.
And it's something that really I find very, 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 very strange that people think that when we're given a diagnosis of dementia, that we lose our intelligence straight away and that we go into the latter stages of dementia. They don't realize that we're still the same intelligent person, and we'll keep our intelligence until the day we die. We may lose the capacity to communicate and do the things that we want to do, but that's the frustration of the dementia. We'll always have the intelligence and the knowing that we're there, and that's what causes all the frustration to us. It causes us more frustration by it's like life becomes like playing a game of charades. You know, we're trying to get people to understand what we're trying to say, and people don't understand, and that builds up frustration. If anyone's ever played a game of charades and you know what you want to say, and you're trying to get other people to say it, and when people find out what you want to say, it's, oh yeah, so simple.
I don't think there's a morning that I wake up that I don't reach out for Paul. And you know, it's like hitting on a sore spot every single morning, and he just isn't there. And I suppose all partners are like that when they've had a partner that they love very much, but it hurts every morning.
Yeah, it's quite interesting you say that, because Andy Woodhead has written in the chat box almost word for word what you just said, and he actually wrote before you said it, Sheila. So, and he says that for weeks I would wake up and forget that Mum was dead, and so it was fresh grief again and again and again and again. I mean, that's something we kind of overlook, isn't it? I mean, that's had you not mentioned it, and had not Andy sort of brought that up, I mean, do you think that's a common symptom that people understand?
Some people do.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the points I would have been bringing up before. You know, it's you know, when people, you know, when we talk about if a person, do we tell someone they're dead or not? I've been thinking, don't forget that that's the first time that person will have heard that the mum or the dad will have died, and the pain and the grief will be the same as when they first heard it. And if you're getting told that every day, you know, it's going to have a big build-up, because that sadness will stay with you through the day. You might forget why the sadness and the feelings in there, and then the next day you're compounding it again by telling it again. So
that's absolutely true, Tommy. Absolutely true.
You could be killing the person, you know, with grief, without them knowing why they're feeling grief.
Yeah. I think we forget how debilitating grief can be as well, don't we?
Yeah.
How it can affect your health, and you know, we forget that bit. People look withdrawn, or they stop eating and drinking properly. Yeah. I mean, that's very important points you both brought up there. If I can move on to Joy. Morning, Joy.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for having me. Yeah, I would just like to agree so much with what Tommy and Sheila have just said. It's so important. I mean, sometimes we do have to tell a white lie, and I know some people would disagree with me on that, but just keep reminding someone that, you know, a sad event has happened is really, in my view, not kind at all. And for me, I think with my dementia, I can't remember what I had for breakfast, but I can remember when my dad committed suicide all those years ago, and the flashbacks come and come, and just having people around me that I don't have to keep explaining why I'm sad. That is really helpful. But I think what I mainly want to say is, when we're discussing the area of bereavement, we quite often concentrate on our loss, the loss of someone we love or someone we knew. But bereavement can be the realization that we've lost a career, a dream, or a lifestyle. This is true when it comes to dementia. We may have planned our retirement, looked forward to holidays, etc. But a diagnosis of dementia can interfere with our plans, leaving us feeling bereft. I've experienced this intense loss, and my way of coping has been to seek out people who understand my disappointment. And for me, Three Nations is where I go to feel loved. And this helps with my feeling of bereavement. Tone.
You brought some important issues up there, Joyce. Some which.
Yeah, I don't know if you can still hear me,
Yeah,
Nigel.
we can hear you. Yeah.
It's just my screen's gone all stupid. I was going to say it's died on me, but that's not appropriate. Sorry. I'm back now. Sorry, what were you saying, Nigel?
Well, I was saying that you brought up a couple of points, a few points there, which people will recognize and identify with. One is the fact that the grief comes in waves, doesn't it? And like all things, grieving is something we can't handle on our own. It's bad enough when everything's in place, but when you've got something in the way like dementia or something like that, or ill health, or not feeling very well, they tend to be kind of exacerbated. So my question to you is, I mean, you don't have to answer it, but I'd like you to have a stab at it, is how do you support somebody who's actually grieving? What's the best way to do it?
Oh, that's a difficult one. As has already been said, it's easier if you know the person. But I found that just being there sometimes is all that's needed. I think talking, it can help, but I don't think it helps particularly. People just want to be listened to, and that they can just be angry. A lot of people who've lost someone or have lost a pet or whatever the loss is, they want the opportunity to be able to voice their anger and their frustration, and just to be there, I think is as important as anything else.
Yeah, that's really true, Joy. I remember years ago, I was a Samaritan, and after we'd finished our training, we had a roundup of questions we wanted to ask. And I remember saying, I'm worried that I won't have the answers. And the woman who was doing the training, who was absolutely brilliant, said, you don't need the answers. You just need to be willing to stand by the pain. And that's absolutely true.
Yeah. So Tommy, how do we best deal with the pain?
The best way to deal with the pain is to actually talk openly about it. Talk about the good things the person have done. Talk about the positives that the person's done in their life. Talk about the positives that people can do. Because as Joy and as Sheila have said, we're still living with this grief every day. We put it in the background, but it's there all the time. And when we're on our own and we've got no one to talk to, that's when the grief comes out. And that's when, if people won't talk to us about these things, it's feeding the grief. What we've got to do is get people to feel comfortable talking to us about things like this. Let us get it out, because sometimes when you get it out, it's like a form of therapy, and then you can start to heal. And if we can talk openly, and you know, I think what's the saying? A burden shared is a trouble shared is a trouble halved. You know, so if we can get it off our chest and show that we're willing to talk about it, because people won't start the conversations with us about it. You know, no one's going to come up to us and say, "What do you think about dying?" You know, we've got to actually start that conversation ourselves. Joy, have a hand up then?
Yeah, just relating to loss and my diagnosis, and I'm sure it's true for a lot of other people. When you're told you've got a diagnosis of Alzheimer's or any form of dementia, I think it's then that I needed to be able to say how angry I was feeling at that moment. And for me, it would have helped to have been able to say, look, I've been in nursing. I know what's ahead of me. So I know what I could be losing. Not that I want to paint a very dark picture, but just to give people who have recently been diagnosed just an outlet to say, you know, I recognize there are things that I'm going to have to give up or things that are going to change, but to help people to focus on other things that we can still do. Like Tommy said earlier, there are still activities and things that we can get involved in, maybe trying new things so that that loss doesn't feel so powerful and that it's taking us over.
Yeah, very well.
And I think we can't overestimate, I can't remember what we do for each other is just amazing.
Mm.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that goes into the question of, you know, we're all sharing the same ground, aren't we? So, you know, if we can hold our arms out to somebody and make their life just a little easier, then it's well worth doing. Good
And
morning.
there's nothing I can't talk to you about, Nigel, or Joy. You know?
Yeah, yeah. But the point I'm making is that whether we use it or not, it's there, isn't it?
It's there. Yeah.
Good morning, Julie.
Hi there. Yeah, I'd like to talk about picking up from things that Joy has said and really concentrating on losses that we all kind of meet along the way. And loss can mean so many things, but it can mean the feelings that we experience during times of bereavement, but it can also be a part of our reactions when we meet with the changes and challenges that we come across as we acquire fresh disabilities or begin to struggle with the tasks that we once found easy. Each time it's another stumbling step forwards on an often difficult path, but key to enabling us to adjust and live our lives under new circumstances is acceptance. And once we have accepted, we can look at new ways to achieve those aims and how to break down the perceived boulder before us and reduce it in reality to a mere stone. At the start of my dementia life, I walked around unaided, seemingly normal. And I was the very epitome of the reason some people often greet us with the phrase, "You don't look like you've got dementia." But after only a short time, I developed problems with my balance and not always having my foot clear the ground and was stumbling more. I quickly adapted to life by use of a walking stick to sort of act as my third leg. And it gave me reassurance. However, the next phase wasn't so easy. my balance worsened, and I had to face the fact that I needed something more reliable on which to lean. But the thought of using a walking frame filled me with dread. They were for grannies, and I mean, I am one. But I was only in my 50s and I didn't want to look like one. I'd never had much in the way of street cred, but this seemed just like I was having to give up the little bit that I'd managed to hold on to. The problem with mobility problems in dementia is that we get little or no guidance as we go along. And I had no one in my area of the country to turn to for advice. Eventually, even using my frame was becoming such hard work, especially combined with my increasing chronic fatigue syndrome, that managing outside my home became impossible. I had to face adapting yet again, this time to the use of a wheelchair when venturing outside. It wasn't just the view of myself that was changing, but meeting and relating to and dealing with others and their perceptions of me that also changed. One more aspect of loss in dementia, which is ill recognized until you meet with it yourself, is the way some people choose to distance themselves from us once we're diagnosed. And this can occur to a greater or lesser degree, but most of us have actually experienced it. It might be friends who step away, or even family members, and it certainly feels like a bereavement. But as hard as it is when this happens, there are so many people here in the dementia world waiting to welcome you with love and non-judgmental hugs, that you need never feel alone. My dementia family is filled with the most amazing people I've ever met, and my life would not be complete without them. Some of them are with me on the panel today, and I thank you all for the quality you have added to my life.
Thank you, Julie. The feeling is mutual, trust me. However, I'm going to put you on the spot because I like, you know me.
Yeah,
I can ask you a question. And it's the dilemma of whether or not you tell somebody with dementia that a loved one has died. Do you always do that? Or are there some things, the rules around it?
I think it really has to be down to the individual. And as everybody else has said, getting to know that individual. Obviously, it can be easier if you already know that person, because you build a relationship with them, you know little about them. It can be harder if you're a healthcare professional. But I think it's really about trying to get to know the person first of all, and consulting with their family to try to get a bit more, know more about them, but also not just to assume that we've already talked about that people don't lose their feelings because they have advanced dementia. So just because someone can't actually voice the fact that they are feeling sadness or that they are missing someone, then it's learning to pick up on those cues of other ways that people might express that they're missing someone. And and again, as it's already been said, it's not necessarily kind of knowing what to say. It's about the being there for that person and reassuring them, so that even if they are feeling a sense of loss of someone not being around anymore, then letting them know that they are still supported, that they're still loved, and that someone still values them.
Why do you think professionals sometimes agonize over this and sometimes take the soft option of not saying?
I think they're frightened, like Tommy referred to, they're frightened of that person showing emotion and want to avoid that person potentially upsetting them, seeing them cry. And, you know, we all have to be allowed to show emotion. You don't want to create unnecessary distress to someone, but if someone feels a need to express themselves through having a good cry, there's nothing wrong with that. It's a human emotion, and they should be supported through that. But, you know, we shouldn't try to disallow someone to have feelings and to avoid those, because it makes us as carers feel better. It's not about the carer feeling better. It's about trying to best support the person who's actually got the dementia.
Yeah, there's a question. There's a quote in the chat, a message in the chat box from Nicola Harding saying, "Thank you, Julie. My mum died from dementia last year, and what I learned through my time caring for her was she may have forgotten who I was, but not how I made her feel," which is a direct link. I think Maya Angelou says exactly the sort of thing. People may forget who you are, may forget what you do, but they won't forget the way you made them feel. And that's why I think it's so important that you use correct judgment when you decide whether or not to tell somebody that a loved one won't be coming anymore, but you don't use words like gone to sleep or stuff like that, because you'll understand it. Can I ask a general question to all of you? Do you think that, Joyce?
Yeah, I think there's another aspect to this as well. There's good practice when we come to relating to people living with dementia, and there's not so good practice. My in-laws both had dementia, and some of the staff were excellent, because mum would keep asking, well, where's dad? Why hasn't he come for tea? And she'd ask hundreds of times a day, and the majority of the staff were excellent. But dad was sitting next to her, and she, because of the advance of her dementia, she wasn't aware that he was there. So I think a lot of it goes down to the caring part of the care.
Yes, yes. What do you all think about allowing somebody with dementia to go to the funeral, or do you think that's a step too far? Anybody want to go with that?
Yeah, I think it's down to Julie's point again. It's down to the individual again, so, every one of us with dementia is completely different, so it's about knowing the person. This is where, the family or the carers, they've got to know the person, and if they don't know the person over the years, and at what stage of dementia they are, I mean, if you're in the very latter stages of dementia, then maybe no, you don't need to go to the funeral. But I'll go to people's funerals. It's heartbreaking for me, but I still go because I want to pay my respects to that person. So as I said at the beginning, we still have our intelligence. We still understand what's going on. As long as I've got that capacity to do that, I'd always like to be told, I wouldn't like someone to keep it from me that one of my good friends has died, just to stop me feeling bad when I could understand about it.
yeah,
I
yeah.
think the truth is telling the truth is really important, because if we find we've been lied to, or things are being kept from us, we're going to lose trust in that person who's done that.
Yeah, yeah.
And hard though the truth can be, it's better to hear it.
You can't pick and choose what you tell and you don't tell people, though, can you? I mean, that's and I mean, I take all your point. I mean, I take the point that it depends where you are in your journey, or whether or not it's worth causing all that distress if the lack of understanding is still there. But I don't think we should make that. I don't think anybody should make that judgment about somebody unless they actually know them fairly well. You know, so how well do you think people living with a diagnosis deal with long-term grief? Do you think they deal with it very well?
It's defining what it is. I mean, you know, I lost my 14-year-old nephew. He was knocked off a bike and killed by a woman who was on a mobile phone. You know, so that grief hurt me more than any other, because that was a life that was taken unnecessarily. You know, whereas when some of my older friends, you know, die, that grief isn't as bad as when someone that's healthy dies.
Yeah. As I said, I lost my mother 43 years ago, and I think about her every day. She's always with me. You know, I'm not being spooky about it, but you know, she's always with me. I hear her voice all the time, and I'm grateful for it. But I think as my journey goes on a little bit, that may sort of disturb me a lot more than it's disturbing me now, because now I understand. I have the capacity to look into it. Julie.
Yeah, I mean, I lost both my parents to dementia, and I love both of them. I was especially close to my dad, and it's sort of, I don't know, about 17 or 18 years ago now since I lost him. But because I was especially close to him, there's not a day goes by when I don't think about him and that I don't miss him. And that but what I do certainly now as a kind of make that a positive grief, if that makes any sense, is I always, when I get those sad feelings that he's not around, is to comfort myself by thinking, well, you know, he was such a wonderful dad. You know, if I could have actually gone to a factory and chosen the right dad for me, he would have been the one I would have chosen. I was so lucky to have had him. And so, you know, for as long as I had him, you know, wasn't it a real bonus in my life that he was there?
Yes. I mean, Joy, we have similar histories. I've spoken to you about it. We have similar histories in terms of, you know, being very young and having suffered bereavement. Do you think that's the kind of stuff that stays with you, irrespective of whether you have a cognitive cognitive decline? Does it still stay with you?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. But I think having dementia certainly doesn't help, because some days, well, I just speak for myself, some days I'm in control more than other days. So if I start going backwards, like I said earlier, you know, I can't remember whether I've cleaned my teeth or not, but these things from the past sort of jump up and get me every now and then. So that loss is focused on, and I think with the dementia, the that experience is more intense.
Yeah, yeah, I think so. I think when it hits hardly. Sheila, we talked a lot about support from other people. How important do you think that is when you're helping people to deal with bereavement and or grieve indeed? How important is it that they have somebody they trust to talk to?
Oh, it's beyond anything, I think, that there's someone who you feel safe to either talk to or just be silent with or to cry with. You know, that understanding and companionship in your grief means more than there are words to say, really.
Yeah. Julie? Do you think exactly, what do you think about that?
Sorry, could you repeat that?
How important is it to have somebody close to you when you're grieving to help you through the journey?
Absolutely. I was really moved by what Sheila said before about when she was in training to be a Samaritan, and what her trainer had said to her. That it's just, I think kind of there's maybe still people have a kind of misunderstanding that when someone's grieving that you need to be saying the right thing to them, and having a conversation, and sometimes it's just about being there and being by them and letting them know that they're not going through this alone. So if it's just sitting in silence or sitting and holding their hand, then that human comfort to be there is may quite often be enough.
Joy?
Yeah, I think for me as well, a lot of it is about trust. If I feel I can trust someone to say, you know, my particular experience, however traumatic it's been, trust for me is a very high priority when I'm talking about loss, or when I'm talking about the situation in which I've experienced loss and death. And I think if that trust is broken, which I have as well experienced, if that trust has been broken, and the person I've shared has spread it about, that is almost as bad as losing the person, because that, as we've said, the trust is broken beyond belief.
Yes, yes.
I remember when my first husband died, a friend of mine just avoided me and then said afterwards she couldn't think of anything to say. And I didn't need her to say anything, but I still feel the hurt of that.
Yes, it's very much it's very much like when you first get diagnosed, isn't it?
Yeah.
People,
Similar feeling.
you're sitting there grieving because you know you can see your life falling apart in front of you, and then people either avoid you, or when they see you, they look at the, why did they look at their shoes? I don't know, they don't find the other. You don't get the answer down there. I mean, that's what I find. Tommy, I mean, do you think there's a similarity between the grieving of losing somebody and the grieving of a diagnosis?
Well, the same shock, because when you're not given that diagnosis, I don't think you'll have ever felt any fear like it in your life, you know, and you do get that sense of loss straight away. And you know, I accept death because it's something that it's never feared me or worried me in my life, because it's a natural part of living. And if you could get out of it, the rich would have bought it up, you know, and took it. So, you know, I sometimes don't think that we should be grieving too much all the time. We should be celebrating what the person's done in the life, you know. If the person's done good in the life, done well in the life, you know, it's a time to celebrate. If someone's in horrendous pain, you know, and there's no cure for them, you know, I don't grieve as much when they pass on, because you know that they're out of that suffering. So it depends on how they die and what they die of.
Yeah, yeah. Julie, you have the last word.
Well, I was just seeing there's a really useful question in the Q&A box from Sarah, and she was just asking all of us, have any of us ever been offered any talking therapies, any counselling with regards to loss? I know I haven't, and I haven't heard of anyone being offered it.
Yeah, yeah. I've got a question there from Philip Angrave, I think. Angrave. What about the different cultural beliefs about bereavement? Are those for people with dementia? Are there any differences in approach? Well, yes, there is. You know, there is. You know, I come from a Romani culture. That's a different approach to it. You know, whatever your belief system is, I guess. I guess sort of predicts the way you're going to be. Can I thank you all? It's been splendid. Thank you so much, Tommy, Joy, Sheila, and Julie. I'm looking at the comments here, and they've, you know, it's nice to see that the people are responding to the stuff that we say. In actual fact, our next webinar is going to be about how to do webinars. So
Still not sure how that's going to work out.
It's something we're going to do anyway.
You can leave me out of that one.
Well, you know, you're going to very be much in it, Joy. I think everybody's going to be involved in that one. We had a remarkable success, but this one has been remarkable as well. Can I thank you all for your contributions, and can I thank all the participants who've turned up to listen to us?
Dare I say that although the subject is very sensitive, I have actually enjoyed being part of it, and if it's helped one person out there, then that's good. Yes, indeed. So we bid you all a good day, and thank you for turning up. Stay safe. I didn't pause there because I'm looking at some of these messages that are coming in. Stay safe, and we'll see you in a fortnight's time. Bye bye, everybody.